Omar Suleiman has been the point man for Mubarak and the intelligence services in Egypt for nearly 3 decades. It's important to note that he's not like George Tenet, an intelligence chief. The intelligence services in this part of the world are like the secret police. They operate within the country. Suleiman is the guy who carries out assassinations, tortures in prisons. He's the guy who, if someone knocks on your door at night and you disappear, Omar Suleiman's probably behind it. So he is a feared man and certainly not a man with any legitimacy when it comes to rule of law or any of the principles we prize in America.
You know, Ron, the interesting thing is that given this description that is now emerging about Suleiman, it seems odd, almost bizarre, that the public in Egypt is not demanding his immediate resignation as well as the resignation of Mubarak. Why is Suleiman somehow separate and apart in the public's mind in Egypt?
Well, you know, I think there's some people who are calling for Suleiman's resignation. They say he and Mubarak are really one person. You know, it's important to note where Suleiman fits across the recent history of the United States as well. I mean, he has a couple important footnotes in the drama. The first al-Qaeda arrest we made in November of 2001, not long after 9/11, was a guy named al-Libi. The CIA picked him up, and we brought him to Omar Suleiman in Egypt to torture. That's what the purpose was. He was tortured rather dramatically by Suleiman, and he gave information that was fraudulent information about chemical and biological operations inside of Iraq that Colin Powell then used in his UN presentation. Again, it was false. So what you see here is part of the mix that the United States has gotten into, the so-called dark side, that's caused us so much trouble in terms of our legitimacy over the past few years, and now the question is being called in terms of the United States as pro-democracy, self-determination movements essentially rise from the bottom up and look to the United States for support as example. Well, the fact is we are allied with the people they're trying to overthrow, and right now the United States hasn't done much to separate those bonds.
Well, Ron, just to add a little graphic detail, I think when Suleiman was asked for a DNA sample, he offered a man's arm.
That's right. Yeah, that was another dark chapter. We thought we'd picked up Zawahiri, bin Laden's #2 in 2002. We got a head that was shipped to the United States. Some Afghan tribal leader wanted the $25 million reward. We did a DNA sample. The FBI did it. They got some tissue out of the molar. They call up Egypt. Of course, Suleiman's the point man for CIA in Egypt. He's the guy you call. We say, hey, Zawahiri's brother is in an Egyptian prison. We have the possibility of a DNA match. Suleiman says, no problem, I'll send you his arm. Of course, at that point, the CIA guy on the phone says, don't hang up, all we need is a vial of blood. And this gives you a sense of what happens when the United States goes medieval, so-called, and how difficult it is in terms of our relationships going forward at a moment like we're in now. We haven't extricated ourselves, and unless we do, we're going to have some trouble going forward, especially if pro-democratic regimes come into power.
You know, I want to read to you, Ron, a very brief excerpt from a 2006 U.S. State Department memo, and it says, our intelligence collaboration with Omar Suleiman is now probably the most successful element of the U.S.-Egypt relationship. And when you read that, is that the key to understanding why we have been so off in understanding what is actually going on inside Egypt? We have seen this through the prism, through the evidence that Suleiman wanted us to have.
Yeah, exactly. You know, what you're talking about, Elliot, is a relationship with Egypt's intelligence services. It happens all through that region. Our liaison relationship, so-called, is with the intelligence chiefs of these countries, the heads of the secret police. And so we see pretty much only what that government sees. And so we are missing now, as we're finding out, the intelligence boiling up from the street as to what's really happening in terms of these rather sweeping movements that in some ways are out there trying to copy what we do in this country. That blindness to intelligence more broadly wrought is what's getting us into trouble. We don't see these things coming any more than the regimes see them coming, because that's all the intelligence we get.
You know,